This is Echoes of History, where the past still speaks.
Did you know there are strange gaps in the timeline of human civilization? Entire centuries vanished from Europe, with no records, no events, no trace left behind. Did you know that some ancient civilizations had knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and mathematics far beyond what their era should have been capable of? Yet they're barely mentioned in textbooks. So the question becomes, who decides what gets remembered and what must be forgotten? The truth is, there have always been powers actively shaping the collective memory of humanity. They burned books, banned the spread of knowledge, and destroyed libraries, not out of ignorance, but precisely because they knew something very well. Knowledge is power. If you can control memory, you control the present. And if you control the present, you shape the future. What we're left with today isn't really history. It's a story. A story that's been edited, revised, and sometimes rewritten from scratch. The real truth lies buried beneath thousands of layers of dust, hidden under stone, locked away in forbidden manuscripts, and sometimes buried deep in our own subconscious. That place inside us that always felt like something was off, but we were never taught to question it. And if you've ever felt that way too, if you've ever sensed that the history we've learned isn't quite right, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Bedtime History, where every story is a gentle journey into the forgotten mysteries of our shared past. Here, you don't just listen to history, you begin to see the parts that were hidden, because sometimes the most powerful truths are the ones that were never meant to be remembered. And yet here you are, ready to rediscover them. When we think of history, we often imagine it as a steady, unbroken stream, like a film that runs smoothly from ancient times to the modern day. But look a little closer and something strange starts to appear. There are silent gaps. No new buildings, no remarkable inventions, no reliable historical records, just emptiness. A blank space, and everyone seems to move past it as if nothing unusual ever happened. One of the most suspicious of these gaps is the so-called missing century. From the year 614 to 714 AD, a full 100 years that left behind almost no trace. Very few historical events were recorded, no clear developments in art, architecture, philosophy, or politics. Even the emperors said to have ruled during this time, if mentioned at all, are tied to vague, unverified timelines. A controversial theory called the phantom time hypothesis suggests that this entire period may have been fabricated, added deliberately to the historical record by those in power at the time. Some scholars believe that Emperor Otto III and Pope Sylvester II may have adjusted the calendar to make the year 1000 a symbolic milestone, marking the rise of a divinely ordained empire. If true, it would mean we're living in a manipulated timeline. Although this theory isn't recognized by mainstream historians, it raises a question that's not easy to dismiss. Why do entire periods of human history seem to be missing? And it's not just the 7th century. Look at ancient civilizations across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. There are stretches of hundreds of years with no maps, no administrative records, no newly discovered architecture. It's as if someone pulled a black curtain over an entire era. And if you think that happened just because records were lost over time, then consider the Library of Alexandria. Once hailed as the greatest center of knowledge in the ancient world, it held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts from a wide range of civilizations. Not just Greek works, but also Egyptian, Persian, Indian, Chinese, and even long-lost texts from Mesopotamia. It was a place where scholars from all corners of the world came to share and preserve wisdom. And then it burned. No one knows for sure who set the fire. Some blame Caesar's army, others point fingers at religious fanatics. Still others believe the destruction happened over many centuries in a systematic effort to erase knowledge that couldn't be controlled. The bigger question is, why burn books? If knowledge is light, why extinguish it? If a library holds the past, why burn the memory? It's not because those manuscripts were wrong, it's because they didn't fit the story someone wanted to tell. A blank space in the historical record isn't always just an oversight. It can be the result of a deliberate act, burning a library, banning documentation, erasing a civilization from the map. None of it leaves blood, but all of it leaves scars on the memory of humankind. And if whole centuries can disappear, how many other memories are still being hidden? When we look at any page of history, we tend to assume one thing, that what's written down is the truth. But the truth, like light, only shines where someone chooses to flip the switch. History does not exist independently of power. Since the invention of writing, those who held the pen also held the power to shape memory. And so the real question has never simply been, what happened? The real question is, who told the story, and what did they want us to remember? For thousands of years, power and knowledge have gone hand in hand, but not to be shared, to be kept. Empires, whether in the East or the West, share a common trait. They only recorded what served their survival. If they lost a war, they called it a tactical retreat. If a province rebelled, it was labeled insurrection. If another civilization was more advanced, it was dismissed as barbaric and erased from the historical map. Religion, too, in many periods, served as a gatekeeper of knowledge. Books weren't burned because they were meaningless, but because they held ideas that challenged doctrine. Throughout the medieval centuries, only what was approved by the Church was allowed to circulate. Any opposing thought, even a simple question, was branded as heresy. And even as the world moved into modern times, knowledge continued to be filtered, categorized and controlled. At this time, not through public punishment, but through systems. The school system, the academic system, the publishing system, the research funding system. Each system sets its own standards. What's called scientific, reliable, or valuable. And anything outside that framework is pushed into a grey zone, lacking evidence, lacking credibility, lacking merit. But have we ever stopped to ask, who sets these standards, and why are we discouraged from questioning them? Students are taught from a curriculum. Curriculums are written by committees. Committees are approved by national education systems. and the cycle repeats, generation after generation, creating what might be called a curated memory. Not because someone is actively lying, but because the entire system only allows what fits into the picture that's already been painted. So what happens to the parts that don't fit? They're not rejected, they're ignored. No debate, no rebuttal, just silence. And as you know, what's never spoken of slowly ceases to exist, like a room without a name, forgotten inside the very house it belongs to. The question is, do we, the ones who come after, have the right to reopen those doors? Do we dare ask, are we learning objective history or just a version that was permitted? And if something has been erased from memory, who gets to decide what's forgotten? Have you ever looked at an old map and seen a name completely unfamiliar, even though it once covered nearly all of northern Eurasia? That name is Tartaria. On dozens of European maps from the 16th to 18th centuries, Tartaria is clearly drawn, stretching from the eastern edges of Russia all the way to the borders of China and deep into Central Asia. It wasn't some hazy frontier or unexplored wilderness. It had borders, it had cities, it had territorial divisions, it had people. So why is it that today almost no one knows about it? You won't find Tartaria in any school textbook. There are no official lessons about its political systems, its culture, or its language. No major museum displays its artifacts. And in the minds of most people, it simply never existed. But the strange thing is that the traces of Tartaria aren't as faint as we've been led to believe. Across both Europe and Asia, there are architectural structures, eerily similar in style, that show technical features far beyond what was expected of their time. Massive stone columns, grand domes, arched windows, and even hidden electrical systems embedded in walls. They all seem like remnants of a unified architectural logic, not random, not isolated. In fact, many government buildings, museums, and train stations built during the 18th and 19th centuries in completely different countries follow the same designs, proportions, and decorative motifs, even though there's no clear cultural connection between them. Some independent researchers believe these are surviving remnants of Tartaria, repurposed by later governments, their functions changed, and new nameplates nailed to the front. Of course, anyone who dares to ask questions about Tartaria is often dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. But have you noticed something? Every time a civilization is labeled a myth, the door to exploration quietly shuts. Was Tartaria truly a full-fledged empire? Or was it just a vague geographic term used by early Europeans for lands they had yet to explore? The answer may not be clear. But one thing is, instead of investigating, modern history chose to look the other way. No inquiry, no teaching, no debate. Just deletion. And Tartaria is not the only case. Try asking a student what they know about the northern Mesopotamian cultures, or the Andean civilizations that came before the Inca, or the medieval African kingdoms that traded with Arabia and India, and you'll often get a blank stare, not because young people don't care, but because those stories were never told to them. And over time, what isn't spoken of begins to feel like it never existed. A civilization that has no place in the textbooks slowly disappears from collective memory, But human memory isn't erased as easily as a line in a curriculum. It leaves gaps, vague intuitions, unnamed questions, and sometimes that quiet feeling, I've seen this somewhere before, is the very signal that a piece of history is still waiting to be remembered. Perhaps no name in ancient history stirs more controversy than two syllables: Atlantis, a city shaped in concentric circles, described as having canals connecting each ring by water, advanced defensive systems, abundant resources, and architecture far ahead of its time. A flourishing society that vanished in a single day, and as if it never existed. The entire story of Atlantis comes from two famous dialogues by the Greek philosopher Plato, Timaeus and Critias. He wrote that Atlantis was a mighty civilization that once dared to challenge ancient Athens, only to be swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. That was around 360 BCE. Many are quick to point out that Plato was a philosopher, not a historian, and that perhaps he simply used Atlantis as an allegory, a cautionary tale about the downfall of morality and unchecked power. But if that's true, why are there so many technical details in the story? Plato didn't just describe Atlantis symbolically, he provided the proportions of the city's rings, the width of the canals, the metals they used, including a mysterious one called orichalcum, long thought to be mythical until a similar alloy was discovered in a sunken ship off the coast of Sicily. Which raises an uncomfortable question: what if Plato was telling the truth? And if he was, why has the rest of the world insisted on calling it a myth? Just like Tartaria, once a story is placed in the legend category, people stop treating it as something worth investigating. It becomes a bedtime tale, not a historical lead, but that doesn't mean it's not real. Over the past century, countless theories have been proposed about the true location of Atlantis, off the coast of Gibraltar, beneath the Caribbean Sea, even in Antarctica or the Sahara Desert. Each site comes with some evidence and just as many counter-arguments. But here's the strange part: the more evidence surfaces, the more the story of Atlantis seems to be pushed deeper into myth. Why is that? Perhaps because if Atlantis did exist, and if it truly possessed knowledge beyond its era, then the origin of human civilization might not begin in Mesopotamia or Egypt, as we've been taught. It would mean the entire timeline of history that would need to be rewritten. And that's something not everyone is ready to accept. Because history isn't just about the past. It's the foundation of our worldview. It defines what we call progress, science, and civilization. If there was once a civilization that came first and then disappeared, are we still standing at the peak we think we are? Maybe that's why Atlantis was buried, not just beneath the waves, but beneath layers of deliberate doubt. No one forbids you from researching Atlantis. But everyone will warn you, don't take legends too seriously. And in the academic world, that kind of warning is how conversations quietly end. But if history is an incomplete puzzle, maybe the things we call legends are actually the missing pieces. Among all the ancient civilizations mentioned in school textbooks, Egypt is the one name that seems impossible to leave out. Pharaohs, pyramids, the Sphinx, the Nile River. These images have been etched into the memories of millions of students around the world. And yet there's a strange paradox. The more we're taught about Egypt, the less we seem to truly understand what actually happened, because everything is wrapped in a fixed narrative, and that the ancient Egyptians were clever farmers who built an empire through slow accumulation and tireless labor over time. But when we look at what they left behind, that theory starts to crumble. Let's begin with the pyramids of Giza. 3 massive pyramids standing tall in the desert, each made of multi-ton stone blocks stacked with millimeter precision, without mortar. Their angles are nearly perfect, aligning closely with the tilt of Earth's axis. The base of the Great Pyramid of Giza aligns almost exactly with the planet's prime meridian, with a margin of error under 0.05 degrees. The layout of the pyramids also reflects the position of the 3 stars in the Orion constellation, but with astonishing accuracy. And if you think that's just a coincidence, try building something like it today. No one has managed to do it, even with cranes, heavy-duty trucks, and laser-guided positioning systems. Modern engineers still can't replicate the precision that these so-called ancient farmers achieved thousands of years ago. So, is something not adding up? Many independent researchers have asked a bold question. Did the ancient Egyptians actually build the pyramids, or were they simply the inheritors? Because there is no record, none, in any ancient Egyptian text describing the construction of the Great Pyramid. No blueprints, no tools left behind, no documents naming an architect. This towering structure, now one of the most iconic on Earth, is completely anonymous. And that's just one example. The ancient Egyptians had knowledge of astronomy far ahead of their time. They understood Earth's axial tilt, tracked the Sirius star cycle, and calculated the length of the year with a margin of error under 0.25 days. A level of precision modern science only confirmed recently with advanced technology. They practiced sound-based healing, performed mummification using chemical compounds we still haven't replicated, and carved granite, harder than iron tools, with a method that remains unexplained. So why aren't these facts taught in standard history classes? Why are serious questions about the level of Egyptian knowledge often brushed aside, dismissed as fringe speculation? Could it be that if we admit they possessed advanced technology, we would have to rethink the entire arc of human evolution? Could it be that such timeless knowledge doesn't fit the neat, linear story, where humans slowly rose from savagery to civilization? And more importantly, if such knowledge once existed, who gave it to them? The ancient Egyptians consistently spoke of gods who taught them how to build, heal, farm, and read the stars. But in modern interpretations, we treat those accounts as mere mythology and ignore the possibility that these gods may have been symbols of a prehistoric civilization that vanished without a trace. Egypt didn't try to hide its history. It carved everything in stone, left it for the future to see. But those who retold the story chose to tell only part of it. And the part left untold, the part left in silence, may hold the key to everything we've never dared to imagine. We often credit all major technological advances to the modern world, assuming that only today's humans have the tools and knowledge to build great wonders. But when you look at certain ancient structures, not with romantic eyes, but with sober clarity, something unsettling becomes clear. They don't fit into the timeline of human evolution. They feel like artifacts from the future, misplaced in the ancient past. Let's begin with the most familiar, the pyramids of Giza, which we just talked about. A geometric, astronomical, and engineering masterpiece, still standing after thousands of years without collapse. To this day, no one has managed to recreate it using ancient methods, and there's no clear Egyptian record explaining how it was built. Now let's leave the deserts of Egypt and cross the ocean to South America, where one of the most astonishing structures on Earth quietly sits, mostly unknown, Puma Punku. Located high in the Bolivian Andes, over 3,800 meters above sea level, Puma Punku is a stone complex made of massive blocks weighing hundreds of tons, cut with laser-like precision, featuring perfectly symmetrical H-shaped grooves. Some of the blocks interlock so precisely they resemble parts from a modern industrial assembly line, yet the site dates back over 1,000 years, to a time when Andean people didn't even have the wheel. You might ask, without hardened metal tools, how did they cut granite and diorite, stones harder than steel? No one knows. Even more surprising, that question is almost never raised in history books. Traveling a little farther to the Middle East, you arrive at Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, a site that forced archaeologists to rewrite the timeline of human architecture. Discovered in the 1990s, Göbekli Tepe is over 11,000 years old, older than the pyramids of Giza or Stonehenge. It contains dozens of massive T-shaped stone pillars, each over 5 meters tall, intricately carved with animal symbols, all built at a time when, according to mainstream history, humans were still living in caves, hunting and gathering, and had no concept of temples or organized religion. So, who built Göbekli Tepe? No one knows, and because no one knows, the site is placed into a special box, and mysterious, but not allowed to disturb the official story. But when you step back and look at all three sites, the pyramids of Egypt, Puma Punku, and Göbekli Tepe, one thing becomes clear. They don't fit the timeline of progress we've been taught. They show advanced technology for their time. They leave no clear record of their builders. They involve no known tools capable of the work. They don't align with the level of civilization assumed for their era, and perhaps most telling of all, they're all explained in ways that make them less extraordinary. Because if we admit that advanced civilizations existed long before our modern age, it would mean human history isn't a straight line of progress, but perhaps a series of cycles: rise, collapse, rebuild, and forget. So instead of confronting that possibility, the current system chooses to look away, to label it as unexplained, to call it myth, to keep teaching history as if everything is already settled, but with every stone that cannot be cut, every structure that cannot be rebuilt, every monument that does not match its assigned age, there's a quiet whisper: we've missed an entire chapter of our own story. We often speak of the Vatican as a symbol of faith, the center of Roman Catholicism, a sacred, solemn place of immense spiritual influence. But there's another side that is rarely discussed: The Vatican is home to one of the largest and most secretive repositories of knowledge humanity has ever known. Hidden behind the thick doors of the Vatican Apostolic Archive, formerly known as the Vatican Secret Archive, lie over 85 kilometers of shelving, lined with millions of documents, letters, maps, ancient manuscripts, diplomatic records, and historical writings dating back to the 8th century. There are handwritten letters from Michelangelo and Galileo, edicts condemning heresy, ancient texts on astronomy, even records from the Roman Empire before its fall. And the majority of it, no one outside the Vatican is allowed to read. Only a select few scholars are granted access, and even then, only to very limited sections for short periods of time under strict supervision. No photographs, no documents may leave. No deep questions are encouraged. This raises an uncomfortable question. Why does a religious institution hold such vast collections of global historical knowledge? And more importantly, why guard it so tightly? As usual, the answer isn't just about religion, it's about the power of knowledge, because whoever controls memory controls both belief and the future. For centuries, the Vatican has acted as a gatekeeper of information. When ancient science contradicted doctrine, it was labeled heresy. When pagan texts questioned religious order, they were burned. When a cosmic theory threatened the geocentric model, the speaker was condemned, like Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake in 1600 for claiming that the universe is infinite and might contain countless worlds. The Vatican is not alone in its history of censorship, but it is one of the oldest and most secretive institutions with the ability to shape how humanity remembers its own past, not through open bans, but by deciding what is allowed to be known and what is not. In the modern world, where information feels like it's everywhere, it's easy to assume that secrets are dead, but the truth is, the real secrets are still locked away in archives that no one but the guardians are allowed to see. And that's what makes the Vatican unique. Not because it hides the truth, but because it holds the power to choose which truths remain untold. Could those documents contain references to forgotten prehistoric civilizations? Might there be texts from Egypt, Babylon, or even Atlantis that the world has never seen? Could ancient maps point to lands that no longer exist or were never publicly acknowledged? We simply don't know, because even if you stand directly before that tower of archives, all you see are closed doors, and once again, history becomes a story told only by those who hold the key. In a world where words are the vessel through which humanity records its memory, knowledge, and aspirations, the act of burning books is perhaps the most extreme assault on intelligence. And it's heartbreaking to realize, looking back through human history, just how many flames have been lit. From the Library of Alexandria to the books of the Maya, from ancient Chinese classics to banned texts during the Renaissance, history is filled with moments where knowledge was deemed dangerous and therefore had to be destroyed. Let's begin with one of the most devastating intellectual tragedies ever recorded, the Library of Alexandria. Once known as the greatest center of knowledge in the ancient world, it held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, from mathematics and astronomy to philosophy, medicine, and radical ideas that, had they survived, might have reshaped civilization as we know it. And yet, nearly all of it was lost to war, rebellion, and neglect. No one knows exactly who lit the fire. Some say Julius Caesar, others blame Roman generals, religious authorities, or a series of destructive events over centuries. What we do know is this: the loss was permanent. And it wasn't just in Egypt. In the Americas, when the Spanish arrived in the land of the Maya, they found a culture with its own script, its own calendar, and a remarkably precise body of astronomical knowledge. And yet, within a few short years, nearly all Maya books were burned, condemned as heresy. Father Diego de Landa, one of the first Europeans to interact with the Maya, personally ordered the destruction of hundreds of sacred texts, and later lamented that no one could understand the Maya anymore. That irony may be one of history's deepest tragedies. In Asia, during the reign of Qin Shi Huang in ancient China, a state-sanctioned book burning and scholar purge took place in the name of ideological unity. Nearly 460 scholars were executed. Books from other schools of thought were destroyed. Any knowledge, philosophical, medical, astronomical, that didn't align with the empire's doctrine was systematically wiped out. But censorship of knowledge didn't end in ancient times. During the Renaissance, as thinkers began to challenge the Church's version of truth, a list emerged, the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the Index of Forbidden Books. Included on that list were names we now revere: Galileo, Copernicus, Spinoza, Descartes, once branded as dangerous to human faith and soul. Even stranger, some books were never burned, but instead were hidden or vanished under mysterious circumstances. An ancient manuscript describing anti-gravity architecture from the Greek era, gone. A map depicting an ice-free Antarctica disappeared. Legends of flying machines in ancient Indian texts dismissed without investigation. All of it hovers at the blurry edge between myth and reality, pushed into the shadows through collective silence. In a world where information is power, choosing what is preserved and what is burned is no accident. It's a choice, a deliberate choice about what humanity is allowed to remember and what it must forget. We may never know exactly what was lost, but one thing is certain: the history of humankind was not only written in ink, it was also erased by fire. The development of modern science is often described as a steady climb, from ignorance to enlightenment, from superstition to reason. But if you look closer at that journey, something strange begins to emerge. Many forms of ancient knowledge were discarded, not because they were wrong, but because they didn't fit the dominant worldview of their time. And every time something is labeled heretical or superstitious, it usually has less to do with logic and more to do with power. Let's start with a familiar example: traditional medicine. Long before modern medicine took shape, ancient civilizations in India, Egypt, China, and Greece had sophisticated healing systems, often far beyond what we associate with their era. The Egyptians used sound to soothe internal organs. Indian texts described brain surgery over 2,000 years ago. The Chinese mapped energy meridians centuries before the invention of the microscope. Yet when modern rational science rose to prominence, all of that was dismissed. No chemical formulas, no microscopes, no quantifiable data, then it must be superstition. The same thing happened in ancient astronomy. The Babylonians, the Maya, and the Egyptians all developed calendars with astonishing accuracy, some of which tracked star cycles, astronomical events, and the Earth's axial tilt with precision that wasn't confirmed until much later in modern times. They relied on observation, intuition, and centuries of accumulated knowledge. But when Copernicus and Galileo launched the age of modern cosmology, the entire body of ancient knowledge was shelved as myth. No one asked how these civilizations got it right. They were simply dismissed because their methods weren't recognized. Then came the turn of knowledge about non-material energy. From life force to biofields to psychic phenomena, can't be measured with current instruments, can't be proven in a lab, then it's unscientific. Once again, knowledge was pushed aside, not because it was false, but because it didn't fit the mold. But who sets the mold? For centuries, science hasn't evolved in isolation. It has grown alongside, and often under, the influence of powerful institutions, the church, academies, governments, and corporate empires. When science served exploration, it was encouraged. When science asked the wrong questions, it was shut down. When Galileo said the Earth revolved around the sun, he was condemned. When alchemists spoke of turning lead into gold, they were called mad, until modern inorganic chemistry proved it possible. When someone claimed you could heal with energy, they were dismissed as quacks. And yet the irony is this. Many ideas once branded as heresy, but are now called cutting-edge science. The problem was never the idea. The problem is always this: who has the authority to decide which ideas are allowed to exist? And when ancient knowledge is buried, it's often replaced by a kind of knowledge that's easier to control. A knowledge that doesn't ask deep questions about the human soul. A knowledge that serves production, warfare, and consumption, more than healing, connection, and understanding who we really are. So the question isn't just, why was ancient knowledge discarded? It's, who benefits when humanity forgets what it once knew? When we think of ancient civilizations, we usually picture kings, empires, warriors, invasions, and clearly defined hierarchies, and almost always men. From pharaohs to emperors, popes, czars, and supreme leaders, the titles echo through history, and nearly all of them are male. But if we step back, far back, beyond the boundaries of official history, we begin to find strange fragments. Small stone statues, intricate carvings, symbols that appear again and again across the ancient world, the Mother Goddess. From the Venus of Willendorf in Europe to earth goddesses in Anatolia, to the stone idols of the Indus Valley and the goddesses of the Maya, all of these images emerge from a time before recorded civilization began, and they don't depict women as passive or fragile. They represent figures of power, creation, fertility, and cosmic presence. It is the image of the universe seen through the lens of life, not domination. It's possible that before society was built on empires, hierarchies, and war, humanity once lived within a different model, a matriarchal structure where power centered around the mother, where religion revolved around birth, nourishment, and connection, not conquest. And this idea isn't vague or mythical. It's supported by the work of hundreds of archaeologists, including Maria Gimbutas, who described an era lasting thousands of years when communities lived in peace with no fortresses, no weapons, and women at the heart of both culture and spirituality. And then, suddenly that model disappeared from the official historical record. There are no chapters in school books about peaceful, female-led societies, no lessons about civilizations built on harmony rather than domination. Only the rise of patriarchal empires, endless wars, and male dynasties. Why? The answer may lie in a global power shift. When warrior nomadic tribes from the north swept across regions, they brought with them a new societal structure, a patriarchal model where the strongest ruled and men dominated religion, military, and politics. And to establish a new worldview, they had to erase the old one. They had to turn goddesses into helpers, replace Mother Earth with Father Sky, rewrite the origin stories. Instead of being born of a goddess, humans were molded from clay by an all-powerful male deity. And so new myths emerged, new religions rose, history shifted, and the feminine half of human memory was packed away, buried beneath symbols, metaphors, or dismissed as folklore. But the things silenced rarely disappear. They remain in the earth, in cave walls, in symbols, in our collective unconscious. And today, as we begin to question the gender imbalance in modern society, those fragments of an ancient feminine civilization are beginning to rise again, not to replace patriarchal history, but to complete the picture of humanity, a picture not only of war, but of birth, not only of rule, but of nurturing, not only of strength, but of connection, a history in which once the mother was the center of the universe. People often say history is written by the victors, but few stop long enough to grasp the full weight of what that truly means. Because when one side wins a war, they don't just take the land, the wealth, or the people. They take the right to tell the story. And that story, more often than not, no longer resembles the truth. Take a look at the map of the world. How many lands once belonged to entirely different cultures before they were conquered, assimilated, and then quietly erased from the pages of history? The Celts once spread across much of Europe. They left behind stone temples, solar worship traditions, and ancient triple spiral symbols. But after the Roman Empire expanded, they were branded as barbarians. Their faith was outlawed, their language suppressed, their culture absorbed. Today we study the glory of Rome, and the Celts are just a footnote. The indigenous peoples of North America, millions of people living on that land for thousands of years, with hundreds of tribes, languages, trade networks, and deep nature-based belief systems. When Europeans arrived, they didn't call it a civilization, they called it a wilderness, and turned the act of taking it into discovery. Modern American history doesn't begin with "someone was already here." It begins with "we arrived." The Aboriginal people of Australia lived on that continent for over 60,000 years. It's the oldest known continuous culture on Earth. But when the British arrived, they declared it terra nullius, a land belonging to no one. No need for treaties, no need for recognition, just erase them from collective memory. And this isn't just ancient history. In the 20th century alone, entire cultures were wiped out within a few decades, through war, through propaganda, through rewritten school books. We were taught to see conquerors as explorers. We called cultural destruction modernization. We built statues for the victors and buried the names of those who lost. But the most heartbreaking part isn't the silence in the history books. It's when an entire people begins to believe the distorted version, when they read in school that their ancestors were primitive, backward, uncivilized, when they forget their native language, when they take pride in having become more like the ones who conquered them. At that point, history doesn't need to be burned. It has already been replaced from within. And if you ask, who benefits? The answer is always the same: the victors. The ones who rewrite history in their own language, embed their values, and use memory itself as a tool of control. But memory never truly dies. It hides in legends, in folk songs, in the unspoken grief of a generation who doesn't know why. They can no longer see the faces of their ancestors. Modern history often celebrates explorers like Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, or Ferdinand Magellan as the ones who opened up the world. We're taught to see them as pioneers, discovering unknown continents, unlocking the door to globalization. But let's pause for a moment. Columbus was the first to discover the Americas. What about the millions of people who were already living there? Do they not count? And what about the sailors and navigators from China, the Arab world, Africa, or even Northern Europe? Where are they in this timeline? The truth is, many explorers came long before Columbus. They're simply not mentioned. And the reason isn't because they were unimportant. It's because they didn't fit the approved narrative. Take, for example, Zheng He, a Muslim admiral under China's Ming dynasty. In the 15th century, he led massive fleets across the Indian Ocean, reaching as far as East Africa. His ships were 3 times the size of Columbus's. His voyages spanned thousands of nautical miles, carrying scholars, goods, even libraries. He didn't come to conquer, he brought diplomacy and knowledge. But after the Ming court shifted its political direction, all records of his voyages were deliberately destroyed. One of the greatest chapters in maritime history, erased from the official story. Or the Arab navigators who had mapped stars and monsoon winds, who docked in Southeast Asia and East Africa centuries before Europe set sail. They didn't plant flags, they didn't claim discovery of lands already inhabited, so they don't count. Or consider the Mali Empire under Mansa Abu Bakr II. Some sources describe expeditions crossing the Atlantic long before Columbus, yet they remain unacknowledged. And maybe the reason is simple: they weren't white. Similarly, the Norse Vikings reached Newfoundland, Canada. They established camps, traded with local peoples. But because it didn't fit the narrative of modern Western discovery, their story was filed under myth. Only when modern archaeology confirmed Viking settlements in North America did historians begin to accept it. But Columbus still remains the center of the tale. The danger in forgetting these explorers is not just that we lose their names. We lose the way they moved through the world. Most didn't bring gunpowder. They didn't rename places that already had names. They didn't carve their legacy into maps with blood. But in a world where conquest defines history, those who came to connect, not conquer, are never called heroes. And if you're not a conqueror, you're left out of the textbooks. So the question is, are we mature enough now to look back on those journeys, not through the eyes of empire, but through the lens of those who traveled to learn, to share, to build bridges, not burn them, because maybe, just maybe, they are the explorers the modern world needs most. When we talk about colonialism, we often focus on occupation, resource extraction, and imposed governments. But there's one aspect that's rarely discussed, yet may be more destructive than all the rest: the rewriting of history. For hundreds of years, Western empires didn't just arrive in Africa, Asia, or Latin America to steal gold, force labor, or spread religion. They came with a far more dangerous mission: to enlighten the past of the peoples they labeled as savages. It began with minimizing and ended with erasing indigenous histories. In India, they called the Indus Valley civilization primitive, despite its sophisticated urban planning, drainage systems, and mathematics from over 4,000 years ago. In Africa, they claimed the pyramids of Sudan, the stone cities of Zimbabwe, or the libraries of Timbuktu couldn't possibly have been built by black Africans. Someone else must have done it for them. In Latin America, the rich empires of the Inca, Maya, and Aztec were painted solely through the lens of blood and sacrifice, ignoring their extraordinary achievements in astronomy, architecture, and medicine. Colonial textbooks weren't just wrong, they were intentionally wrong. Not because evidence was lacking, but because there was a deeper fear. If colonized peoples remembered who they once were, they might stop bowing their heads. And so, for over a century, children in India learned more about British monarchs than their own ancestors. African children were taught that Columbus discovered lands their ancestors had inhabited for millennia. Native American children were forced into boarding schools, forbidden to speak their languages, and told their forebears were wild and uncivilized. Even in archaeology, many discoveries were altered or buried simply because they contradicted the Western-centered timeline. In the 19th and 20th centuries, European scholars described ancient Egyptians as white to avoid admitting that Africans once built one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Ancient Chinese and Arab maps were excluded from official archives. Indigenous languages were labeled unsystematic and unworthy of preservation. So what was the result? Billions of people grew up never knowing the real history of their ancestors, and worse, they were taught to be ashamed of it. Because when you want to dominate someone for generations, you don't need chains. You just need them to believe their ancestors never achieved anything great, that all progress came from outside, that they should be grateful, not curious. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. Today, more people are digging through banned records, studying old maps, relearning their ancestral tongues, and they're discovering their past was never inferior. It was simply told in the voice of the conqueror. If you think the people who shaped history are always the ones remembered in textbooks, think again. History, as we've seen, isn't a neutral record. It's a battlefield of memory where names are preserved or erased, not based solely on merit, but on whether they fit the narrative of those in power. Across thousands of years, countless individuals have helped shape entire civilizations. Yet their names never appear in school curricula, no monuments are built in their honor, no national holidays remember them. They were disappeared deliberately. Take science, for example. Have you ever heard of Hypatia, the brilliant female philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician of Alexandria? She lived in the 4th century, taught publicly, led the city's most respected school of thought, and authored works on geometry, physics, and astronomy. But because she was a woman, not a Christian, she was branded a witch, brutally murdered by a fanatical mob in the streets, and her writings were destroyed. Today, she's mentioned only faintly as a tragic case. Or consider Ibn al-Haytham, the 10th century Arab scientist who laid the foundation for the scientific method. He studied optics, vision, and light centuries before Europe's scientific revolution. Yet in most modern physics classes, his name is barely mentioned, not because he wasn't important, but because he didn't fit the Western-centric narrative. Likewise, Wang Zhenyi, an 18th century Chinese female astronomer who hand-built models of solar eclipses, wrote mathematical textbooks, and developed theories ahead of her time, is left out of mainstream history because she didn't fit the expectations of her feudal era. In politics, there were reformers, people who dared to challenge injustice, who tried to create fairer societies, but because they didn't serve the interests of empires, they were vilified, exiled, or simply erased. Even many famous inventions we associate with celebrated figures may not have come from them at all. There were enslaved black inventors who created machines, Arab craftsmen who designed architectural wonders, women who formulated life-saving medicines, but their innovations were credited to more acceptable names. And just like that, history changed owners, not just of lands, but of legacies. So the question isn't, how many great people have we forgotten? The real question is, why was it necessary to forget them? Maybe because they challenged the old order, maybe because they blurred the lines between civilized and savage, lines that empires needed to justify their dominance, maybe because they were women, people of color, indigenous, or outsiders. But when those names are erased, we don't just lose a few stories. We lose the ability to imagine a different world, a world where science isn't monopolized, where intelligence isn't judged by skin color or gender, where truth doesn't need a license to be believed. Have you ever wondered, what if we're living in the wrong century? What if the entire historical timeline we were taught isn't just flawed, but fundamentally incorrect? This isn't some wild conspiracy. For over a century, a growing number of independent researchers, alternative archaeologists, and unconventional historians have been questioning the very timeline of human civilization. They don't deny the existence of ancient cultures. They question when they existed, and in what order. One of the most controversial theories is known as the phantom time hypothesis, proposed by German historian Heribert Illig in the 1990s. According to Illig, nearly 300 years of European history, from 614 to 911 AD, may never have happened. He argued that these centuries were fabricated by powerful figures, most notably Emperor Otto III and Pope Sylvester II, to place themselves at the prestigious milestone of the first millennium. The result? Dozens of royal dynasties, documents and architectural records may have been falsely dated, pushing the entire human timeline forward by nearly 3 centuries. Sounds outrageous? But Illig and other researchers offer unsettling clues. There is no solid archaeological evidence for many key events between 614 and 911 AD. Architecture and art during the so-called Dark Ages show little to no progression, as if time stood still. Ancient calendar systems were repeatedly modified, leaving behind confusing gaps and contradictions that are still unresolved. Others point to ancient megalithic sites like the Egyptian pyramids, the stone platform of Baalbek, and the fortress of Pumapunku, suggesting they may be thousands of years older than we've been led to believe. Take Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, for example, a massive, sophisticated temple complex dated to at least 11,000 years ago. That's before agriculture, before writing, before what we're taught as civilization even began. Its existence has forced archaeologists to rethink the entire narrative of human social evolution. Because if Göbekli Tepe was real and built by an advanced, organized society, then perhaps even older civilizations once thrived and were erased from human memory. So why would our timelines be so wrong? Was it a technical error, a lack of evidence, or, more disturbingly, was it intentional? Because when power seeks to control memory, it doesn't just rewrite the story, it rewrites time. And when you control the timeline, you control the sequence of achievements. You decide what came first and what came later. You frame the past in a way that glorifies some and erases others. That's how someone who came before can be labeled primitive, while those who came after are called advanced. And just like that, the idea of who is civilized and who is savage gets locked in place. So what if it's not actually the year 2025, but 1725? What if human civilization didn't begin 6,000 years ago, as textbooks say, but 30,000 years ago? Would you dare to ask not just about history, but about the very way we understand ourselves? For centuries, the mysteries of history were concealed behind familiar excuses, not enough evidence, lost manuscripts, undeciphered scripts, impossible to verify. But all of that is changing. Faster than anyone expected, artificial intelligence combined with digitization technologies is transforming what was once considered lost forever into something suddenly within reach. No more centuries of painstaking research, just hours of data processing, from charred scrolls and broken stones to long-dead languages. And the result? Not just new knowledge, but old truths brought back to light. Take 2023, for example. Researchers used AI to decode the ancient scrolls of Herculaneum, a city buried alongside Pompeii by a volcanic eruption. For centuries, the carbonized scrolls were believed unreadable. But thanks to deep learning algorithms, letter by letter, line by line, the words began to emerge, revealing lost philosophical texts and ideas completely absent from mainstream history. Similarly, AI is now cross-referencing ancient maps with satellite imagery, uncovering architectural patterns buried beneath the Amazon jungle, the Sahara Desert, or the floor of the Mediterranean Sea. These structures are not found in any history book, yet they may belong to civilizations long erased from memory. AI is also comparing ancient texts across different civilizations, revealing striking similarities that academic circles had overlooked. And this raises bigger questions. Could there have once been a global knowledge system, a shared network of wisdom that existed long before the internet, ocean voyages, or even maps? In some pioneering projects, AI is being trained on millions of archaeological and historical records to predict missing patterns, such as the possible locations of undiscovered cities or the likelihood of unnamed civilizations having once existed. But perhaps the most powerful thing about AI is this: it holds no historical bias. It is loyal to no ideology, no nation, no religion. It simply follows the data and exposes what we've missed or what we've deliberately ignored. To many, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a chance to revisit history without the filters of empire, dogma, or curriculum. But others are uneasy, because if AI begins revealing too much, will certain powers step in to suppress the data, restrict the algorithms, or dictate the outcomes? After all, if history is a tool of power, then any tool that rewrites history is a threat to that power. And perhaps you've already seen the signs. Some research projects have lost funding. Some unbelievable findings have been excluded from official publications. Some controversial discoveries get dismissed as conspiracy theories. So the question is no longer, what can AI help us uncover? But rather, will we allow the truth to surface once it no longer serves the powerful? Have you ever noticed that every generation grows up being told history is already known? That primitive people lived in caves, then came agriculture, then empires, and everything else is a closed book, sealed and settled? But if you dig just a little deeper, you'll realize something unsettling. Modern education isn't a mirror of truth, it's a filter of memory, designed to keep only what is useful to the current order. For example, why are students taught in great detail about the Roman conquests, Napoleon, or the World Wars, but know almost nothing about the rich civilizations of Africa, the scholars of the Arab world, or the ancient scientists of the East? Why is ancient history always taught along a linear timeline, with the West inevitably portrayed as the pinnacle of civilization? Why are stories like Tartaria, Lemuria, or even well-documented outlier discoveries dismissed as myths? No matter how much mounting evidence emerges, the problem isn't a lack of information. The records exist, the artifacts exist, the data is there. The problem is this: the system wasn't built to encourage questions. It was built to offer comfort, to ensure that everyone believes the same version of the story, not because it's right, but because it's stable. When history is taught as a fixed sequence of indisputable events, it kills curiosity. It prevents people from questioning, and in doing so, it preserves power. Modern education is where monumental revolutions are reduced to a single line in a textbook. Erased figures are never mentioned. Entire civilizations are left unexamined, often for political reasons. And digital era discoveries are dismissed for lacking scholarly consensus. But then we must ask, who creates that consensus? Who writes the textbooks? Who selects the standardized tests? Who decides what is too controversial to teach? You might think, oh, well, history is in the past. What does it have to do with now? But here's the truth. The way we teach history is the way we define humanity. If you're taught that your ancestors just hunted and feared thunderstorms, you'll never question the extraordinary potential within yourself. If you believe that all progress came from somewhere else, you'll forever live as a receiver, never a creator. And that is the most hidden purpose of preserving distorted history in education. Not to make you believe something, but to make you stop believing in yourself. Imagine you're living in a grand, luxurious house. Everything seems fine until someone whispers, "The foundation of this house was once an ancient, sacred site, but it was flattened and buried." Would you still sleep peacefully at night? Or would you begin to examine every brick, every corner, wondering what truths had been hidden? History is just like that. As we connect everything we've uncovered throughout this journey, forgotten civilizations, suspicious timelines, burned knowledge, vanished figures, and an education system that selectively preserves memory, one question naturally arises. Are we living within an edited version of history? A version where glorious eras are dismissed as myths. Centuries of violence are tucked behind words like enlightenment, discovery, or civilization. Ancient cultures are trimmed and neatly arranged into a timeline, far too simple to be true, and transcontinental, transgenerational connections are severed, as if humanity never shared a collective memory. But remember, history isn't just what happened. It's how we choose to tell what happened. And that telling always reflects the power shaping the present. When an empire collapses, history is rewritten. When a religion rises, the story is revised. When a political system takes over, textbooks are replaced. And sometimes an entire people's memory is overwritten with images they never created. The result? We grow up inside a curated narrative, a version someone deemed safe, a version someone deemed profitable, a version where the raw truth has been cut, blurred, or replaced. Worse still, when we repeat that version across generations, we begin to believe it's the only one that ever existed. We forget the missing pieces. We stop asking why there are strange gaps. We no longer sense that perhaps we've been cut off from our deepest roots. But the truth, no matter how long it's buried, finds its way through the cracks. It may live in a forgotten map, a ruin buried beneath the sand, an undeciphered script, or even in the collective dreams of a lost golden age that everyone somehow remembers without ever being taught. And the more people begin to question instead of accept, the more that edited version begins to tremble, not through rebellion, but through memory reawakened. So in the end, what is history? Is it a chain of objective events, or a mirror of collective memory clouded by dust? Is it what's been recorded, or what's been chosen to be recorded? We've just traveled through the layers of time, uncovering fragments someone once hoped we'd forget. Forgotten civilizations, burned manuscripts, erased names. And what we've seen are signs of a much larger story, deeper, more complex, and at times completely opposite from what we were taught. But the rest of the story isn't in this video, it's in you. Because history doesn't live in textbooks, it lives in the way we remember, in the way we retell it, and in the choices we make because of it. If deep down you've ever felt that something was off, if you've ever wondered why the big questions are rarely asked in class, if you've always sensed that some pieces are still missing, then maybe, just maybe, you're part of a generation that's waking up. And now I want to hear from you. What part of history do you think has been most distorted? Is there something you've always questioned but never heard discussed in school? Do you believe we're living in the real version of history or an edited one? Leave a comment. You don't have to be certain. Just be honest. Because who knows? One question from you could spark an entirely new journey. You've been listening to Bedtime History, and where history isn't here to put you to sleep, but to help you wake up.